Hi, Shiwana. How are you? Welcome to my live. I was thinking about you earlier today when we were in somebody else's live. I don't remember which one we were in. I was in a couple of them, and I know you said you were still feeling bad. You don't think you have the flu, do you? I think you said you've been sick now for about a week. I was thinking maybe you might need to go in to see the doctor. What you think? Just a bad cold? Oh, okay. Okay, I was just checking. I was wondering because I think you had said you had been sick about a week. Okay, well, as long as you feel it's just a cold, hopefully it'll break soon. And you'll feel better. So you was in the bed today all day again? Hi Gigi, how are you? How was your day today? Gigi speaking to Shiwana. Shiwana speaking back to Gigi. How was your day, Gigi? I'm good. I had a good day. Okay, Gigi said she had a good day. Yeah, I had a pretty good day to myself. I slept late, didn't do a whole lot, but I had a pretty good day. Couldn't make it by the fireplace tonight, so I'm just sitting here on this little recliner, and I'm gonna do my story time from here. I was having a problem with this Streamlabs again, but I'm glad it finally worked out because I don't like StreamYard, but I mean I would have used it if I had to, but I don't like StreamYard. I'm going to give it another couple of minutes and then I'm going to get started, especially because Shiwana is not feeling well and she's been sitting here for a few minutes, and I appreciate the fact that she came in even though she's feeling bad. I really appreciate the fact that you still joined us for story time, Shiwana. Because I know when I have a cold or something, I just want to sleep. I don't want to do anything else. So I appreciate you stopping by to support me in story time. I'll give it about another 2-3 minutes and then I'm going to go ahead and start the story and not hold you that long. Gigi's saying that she hopes you feel better, sis. See, I don't know if I'll make a full hour tonight. This story isn't as long as some of the others, but I'll go ahead and hang as long as I can. Make sure you ladies thumbs me up. And Gigi, I'm going to ask that you be a moderator for me, please. I appreciate that. And Shiwana, I understand if at some point you have to leave a little early because you're not feeling well. But if you could just hang with me at least 15 minutes, that would be most appreciated. So, because I understand when you're feeling bad. It's kind of rough on you. So I understand. I do understand. But I do appreciate the fact that you've come to support me. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you so much. Shawana, when do you? I know you haven't been on the last week or so in any lives or creating any content because I know you've been sick. But normally, when you do your lives, what hour today do you do your lives? Because I want to try to catch you at some point when you do your lives. I know a lot of times I sleep late, so I do miss a lot of people who go on early during the day. But if I know that you're going to do a live, I'll try to make it over to your live. So what hours do you normally? Hi Denise, Lifestyle and Beauty Vlog. How are you? Welcome to the live. Thank you so much for joining us for story time. I appreciate it that you stopped by. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Gigi speaking to Denise. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I won't prolong the time. Like I said, I feel like everybody's good. I'm glad you had a good day. Everybody's time is equally important, and I appreciate the fact that you all stopped by to see me, to support me in my live. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Gigi, I'm going to ask, like I said, if you could be my moderator. And, you know, I usually don't stop reading as people come in. So if you could greet them for me and remind everybody to give me a thumbs up, I really appreciate it. Far out in the sea, where the water is very deep, the Sea King Voltron Supreme ruled the undersea world. In the deepest spot of the sea was his castle. The walls were made of blue coral. On the roof were shells that opened and closed when the water passed through. And that is where the Sea King lived with his mother and 4 daughters. Princess Alicia, Weird Bree, Marilyn, Middap, and GailB. Each one was born a year apart, you see. The youngest of the 4, Princess Alicia, was the Little Mermaid. She spent much of her time swimming to ships that had fallen to the bottom of the sea. The ships held treasures from the world above, so she would fill her arms and set up her collection here and there. All the while she would sing, and she did. As she did, fish circled around to hear her. For the Little Mermaid's voice was the most beautiful one under the sea. The girls knew when they turned 15, they could swim up to the surface for the first time. It would be a long time that the Little Mermaid had to wait, as she was the youngest, about 9. So she made her grandmother tell her all about life up on land. Tales about ships and towns and every bit of stories about humans that she knew. Soon the eldest sister, GailB, turned 15. She was the first to be allowed to rise up to the surface to see what was going on. When she came back, she had many wonders to tell her sisters about. She told about restings of soft white sand. High above was a deep blue sky with puffy white clouds over lots of land. Later the sun set, she said, and the whole sky turned golden red. She had watched the birds fly high above her, dipping and making turns in the red and the gold sky. When the next sister, Weird Bree, turned 15, it was winter. She told of icebergs floating in the sea and shining brightly. All the ships stayed far away from the icebergs, she said, as if in fear. But the icebergs did not seem lonely. They were near to each other, like friends floating close together. When it was the third sister, Marilyn Middap's turn, she told about moving as close as she could to the gate of a town. She heard people call out, horses that went clip-clop down the street, and even music that she had never heard before. All this the little mermaid heard with wonder and wanted to hear more. It wasn't fair that she had to wait the longest. At last the day came when she turned 15 too. Now she could rise up over the surface and see for herself. When she came up over the water, Princess Alicia was next to a large ship. On the ship, beautiful music was playing. Sailors were dancing on deck. They were laughing and playing. Everyone was having a fine time. It must be a party of some kind, she thought. Now and then, as the waves lifted up, Princess Alicia could see better what was up. A handsome young man stepped out on the deck. When he did, 100 rockets rose in the air. The party was for him. Was it his birthday? She swam closer to see what they'd say. The men all seemed to like that young man. When he spoke, the sailors would laugh again and again. Sometimes they patted him on his back in joy. Once that made his crown fall off. The men laughed and picked it up. A crown, said Princess Alicia. He must be a prince. Suddenly it became very dark and the wind picked up. The sailors started to run about on deck in a panic, of course. They pulled down the sail. The ship dipped and swooped. It rolled side to side and up and down on the high waves. Then lightning, thunder, a strong rainstorm hit. The poor ship started to tip and drift on the rough waves. It was so dark that Princess Alicia could see nothing. Then lightning lit up the sky and she could see the young prince on the side of the boat. He seemed to be the only one still left on deck. He was working hard to keep the ship afloat, but it was a mess. He was throwing ropes out to his men who had jumped, but then all at once the waves got very high and the ship started to tip over. The prince was flung to the side of the ship and thrown overboard. Down into the sea he fell. He dropped very fast. She could tell, but what was Princess Alicia to do? She knew that human beings could not live under the water. She dove deep and fast. She reached out and was able to grab his hand. Then she swam up to the surface as fast as she could. At last she could pull his head above the water. There the two of them floated as the waves rose and fell. By morning the storm had passed, yet the prince was as still as he had been all night. From far off, Princess Alicia saw tops of hills. Land, she said. She swam to the shore, pulling him behind her once more. It was not easy to pull the young man up onto dry sand, but she did it. Was he dead? She asked. She sang a sad song. All of a sudden, the prince started to move, and her sad feelings were gone. "Oh, are you all right?" she said, and touched his forehead. Just then she heard a group of girls come over. At once she dove into the sea water and hid behind a rock. They must not see her a mermaid, she thought. The girls found the prince, who was now awake. They called for help, and soon he was led off for his own sake. The prince would never know that she had saved him. Princess Alicia sank into a deep gloom. When she went back home, Her sisters wanted to know all about her trip, but she was too sad to say anything else. Days went by, and then weeks, but Princess Alicia just stayed to herself. So her sisters went to their grandmother for help. The old woman went to her daughter. "Child, what is the matter?" she said. Princess Alicia cried out and said, "Grandmother, I will never be happy, never again." She told about meeting the prince and saving him, then having to leave him behind. "Unless I can somehow walk on land and be with that young man and his kind, I will be sad for the rest of my days." "My dear," said the grandmother, "you know as well as I do that it is not possible for you, a mermaid, to walk on two legs. Why, the only one who can do anything like that is the sea witch," she said. "But of course, it is much too dangerous to go to her." The sea witch, before she knew it, Princess Alicia was headed to the far corner of the sea where the sea witch lived. "This is no problem," said the sea witch when Princess Alicia told her what she needed. "I fix problems much harder than this. Why, to have legs, all you need to do is to drink my potion. It will help you." Then she turned to face the girl. "But I don't just give it away, you understand." "Oh," said Princess Alicia, "what then is your plan?" In her heart, she felt a lift. So there was a way she could have two legs and be with the prince after all. "Oh, not too much," said the sea witch. "For one, you must give up your voice." "My voice," said Princess Alicia. "Of course," said the sea witch. She knew her voice is what everyone loved about her the best. "You don't need it," said the sea witch. "Chitter chatter, what a waste of time. But know this, little pretty, the voice is mine. And if the prince marries someone else, the next day you must die. And your voice will stay with me forever. But then again, who knows? He might choose you, I suppose." Princess Alicia's heart leaped. The sea witch held out a glass with the green potion. "So," she said, "what will it be? What are you going to do? Make up your mind. I don't have all day to wait on you to decide." Princess Alicia took the potion and she drank it. At once she felt dizzy and in pain, as if a sword was being passed through her body. She spun and jerked about, and then she fainted. When she awoke, she was on the same dry land as when she had rescued the prince. Lifting up her head, she could see that her dream had come true. Where her tail had been, she had two human legs. "Say, miss, are you in trouble?" It was none other than the prince. She tried to say something, but no words came out of her mouth. "Can you not speak?" said he. She shook her head no. "Oh, well then, let's go. Let me take you to the castle. You can clean up there and get some dry clothes to wear. You can be sure Princess Alicia was very happy to join the prince at the castle. At first, walking on her two legs was shaky, but soon she got the hang of it. That night, the prince showed her all around the castle rooms. He would point to a portrait and tell her all about the person, and soon she knew all about his family. When he said something funny, they laughed together. When the story was sad, her kind eyes told him that she knew why, and she felt sad too. The next day was a royal party. The prince had not been looking forward to going to it. Hours of standing with finely dressed people who talk and have nothing to say, he thought. He asked Princess Alicia if she might come with him. She nodded a big yes. That day, with Princess Alicia by his side, the prince felt glad and all giddy inside. Sometimes he would make a comment in a low voice to her, and by her eyes and face he knew that she understood, of course. After that, the prince wanted Princess Alicia by his side every day. He thought he could even fall in love with her, but he still held out in hopes to marry the one with the lovely voice he remembered from when he had been rescued. Of course, it could not be this wonderful new friend who was not able to talk, let alone sing. King Voltron Supreme called for his son one day. "Son," he said, "your mother and I have made a decision. It is time that you took a bride. Luckily for you that we already picked one out for you." "What?" said the prince. He only wanted to marry the woman with the beautiful voice that he remembered. "Who is she? A princess from a nearby land?" "Tonight she is coming with her parents to offer her hand, and then we will make the wedding plans." The prince was crushed, and Princess Alicia felt fear. She knew what would happen to her the day after the prince married someone else. That night, her troubles got even worse. What Princess Alicia didn't know was that the sea witch had put her voice into this princess. She was a stuck-up princess who thought only of herself. Yet when she spoke, it was Princess Alicia's voice that came out. The prince was stunned. He asked the princess to sing. It was Princess Alicia's voice that filled the room. The prince could not believe his luck. At last, he could marry the woman he had longed for all this time. When he shared his joy with Princess Alicia, she tried to show that she was happy for him, but gloom filled her heart. The next morning at dawn, Princess Alicia went to the sea. Her sisters worried since they had not heard from her and rose above the sea to see how she was. Their youngest sister let them know the trouble she was in. The princess' wedding was going to take place the very next day, and the day after that, she must die. The sisters said not to worry, that they had an idea. They told her to come back to the shore later that night. Then they dove back into the sea. That night, Princess Alicia came back to the shore, as she was told. The three sisters rose up again with changes she saw. Gone was their beautiful long hair, for they had cut it all off to give to the sea witch in exchange for a knife. With the knife, Princess Alicia must kill the princess that very night. Then the wedding could not take place, and she could take flight back to the sea and be with her family. She took the knife, for she knew how much they had done for her in love. But in her heart, she knew she could not kill the princess. The wedding day had arrived. Princess Alicia stepped up to the wedding ship with the other guests. The wedding would take place at sunset. In the meantime, the three sisters had returned home. They were met with an angry father who realized that they had gone and not returned with their sister. "Where is your sister?" the Sea King shouted. "Where have you all been?" They told the father the trouble their youngest sister was in. The father said, "I'll swim up to the wedding ship as fast as I can to save my daughter." He saw the prince and princess getting ready to marry. He knew that his daughter did not use the knife that she carried back with her that night. At once, the Sea King rushed to see the sea witch. She laughed. She said there was only one way to save his youngest daughter from her fate. If he would just hand over his scepter to her, Princess Alicia could be saved. With the scepter in her hand, the sea witch would rule the underworld kingdom. The Sea King took a deep breath and started to linger, thinking what else could he do? So he agreed. The sea witch grabbed the scepter and laughed in glee. She rushed to the wedding ship to see her victory. Princess Alicia saw the sea witch rise out of the sea. She saw that with the scepter, the sea witch had become a huge sea monster. Tentacles were twisting out from all over her body like an octopus. Princess Alicia knew she must protect the prince and even his new bride. So she took out the knife she had hidden inside her clothing. Just then, one of the sea witch's tentacles reached out and lifted Princess Alicia right off the ship. "This is the end for you, my dear," cried the sea witch. Before Princess Alicia knew it, she was wrapped up by the tentacles. She was spun to the very chest of the sea witch. And the knife she was holding, the sea witch's very own knife, she used it and dove it deep inside the chest of the monster. The sea witch reeled back in pain, and Princess Alicia was freed once again. On the ship, the guests ran around in fear. The prince shot arrow after arrow at the monster. Finally, the sea witch dropped down under the water. As she fell, Princess Alicia's voice was let go, and it returned to her. The princess then shouted in a gruff, harsh voice, "What a lousy kingdom this is! You can't even have a proper wedding." The prince heard the princess and knew that she was not who he thought she was. The voice she had before was gone. Then Princess Alicia started to sing. The prince knew that the voice he remembered belonged to the very one he had grown to love. The angry princess stormed off the wedding ship, and her family followed close behind. When the Sea King arrived, the scepter was floating in the sea, as if it were waiting for he. With a sweep of his arm, it was his again. Well, said the Sea King, I see my daughter is in good hands. And with a wave of his scepter, he lifted Princess Alicia back onto the ship. The prince put his arms around her. Now I know it was you all along, said the prince. Will you marry me? Princess Alicia had her voice back now, but with all the happiness in her heart, she could not manage to speak. So she nodded yes with a warm smile. And a wedding on board ship took place after all. That concludes our story. I told you earlier it wasn't as long as the other ones we've had. Let's see who came in while I was reading that I missed. I saw Denise Lifestyle. Hello, Micah Agency. How are you? So glad that you joined us during story time. I don't know how long you were in before I finished the story, but hopefully you were in time to hear the story. If not, you have to do the replay. Hi, Frank G. How are you? So glad that you joined me in story time. Hi, Rika and Cloud. So glad you were able to join me in story time. I hope that you all made it in before I finished the story, but I thank you. And you'd have to do the replay if you missed it. But I'm so grateful that you stopped by to see me during story time. Wow, that was okay. Gigi said she enjoyed the story. Wow, that was a great story. Thank you so much, Gigi. I hope that you all enjoyed the story. I really, really do. Like I said, it wasn't as long as some of the others, so we got through it a little quicker than usual. I hope everybody had a great day. Rika and Cloud, I think this is your first time into our story time. I don't ever remember seeing you before, but I appreciate the fact that you decided to stop in. And Frank is always a regular, him and Gigi and Shiwana. Denise has been here a time or two. For those of you who are here for the first time, Rika and Micah Agency, I think I'm pronouncing that right. These are little stories leading up to story time. I am a published author, and I did write a book. It's called My Struggle and Broken Pieces, A Healing for My Soul. And I will eventually, in the future, near future, start reading excerpts out of my book. So these were little stories just leading up to it. That's why I call them a prelude to story time. Also, this is my way of shouting out, giving my shout outs for YouTubers. I've shouted out quite a few of the YouTubers. Frank G was in one of my stories. I don't know if he was there that particular time or if he had a chance to go back and do a replay. Gigi has been in one of my stories. Shiwana, Creative Circle, she has been in one of my stories during story time. Denise Lifestyle and Blog has been in a story. And I just randomly choose the YouTubers based on how the flow of the stories and how their names are. So you will be used as a person, place, or thing, depending on what your YouTube name is. But that's how I give my shout outs for my YouTubers. And in this particular story, Princess Alicia, she is a YouTuber. Voltron Supreme is also a YouTuber. I didn't name a lot of characters in this story, but in some of the other stories I've named quite a few YouTubers. I've had as much as 54 or better YouTubers' names shouted out through my stories, depending on the story. But in this particular story, I didn't do a lot of shout outs, just with the names that you've heard. I know the four sisters, GailB, she's a YouTuber, that's her name. Weird, what was her name? Let me find it. Marilyn Middap, and she spells that M-I-D-D-A-P. Marilyn Middap, she's a YouTuber. Weird Bree, and she spells Bree, B-R-I, she's a YouTuber. GailB. Those were the three sisters that was shouted out in this story. So I didn't have a lot of characters, like I said, but it just depends on the story and how it goes. How I fit the YouTubers' names into the stories. I've also had a couple of book giveaways for people that were able to guess either the exact amount of characters I had in a story, or if whoever came closest to that amount, they won. So I've had about, I think, four or five book giveaways, because I think it was Scratching Queen won a book, and it was funny because the night that she came in, she was actually one of the characters in the story. She won a book. Furnace from Furnace Junk Closet. Who else? Creative Creole. Scratching Queen, Furnace, Creative Creole. I think 50 plus. Yeah, 50 plus. Because the night I had the 54 characters, he guessed as close to it. And I think he said 51 or 52. And Wolfgang. So that's 5. There's 5 book giveaways that I've had so far. And I may do some more in the future. And I'm also going to, once I start reading from my book, I'm going to still do these little stories, because this, like I said, this is also my way of shouting out channels. So for those people that you hear in here, if you don't have them, you know, that's your opportunity. You get the names and you can grab them up. And I think it was Simply a Sweetheart. I don't remember. I think it was Simply a Sweetheart. Or, I don't know, was it Shawana? It was either Shawana. You know, I have these little brain farts. But it was either Shawana. Hi, Bernice. How are you? So glad to see you. Unfortunately, you missed our story, but I'm still glad you stopped by to see me. They asked the question, and it was, how do I pick the characters? Well, I picked the characters based on whom, it's either someone who's subscribed to me or I'm subscribed to them, because that's the only pool I have to pull from. So that's, oh, I know, Bernice. Oh, Bernice is sad that she missed the story. But the good part about it, Bernice, you have the playback, so you can go back and get what you missed. And but she asked the question, how do I pull the names? And it's from either people who are subscribed to me or I'm subscribed to them. But then the other question was, well, how will the people know if their names are used in the story if they're not here? And that's just the thing, because I don't know. There's no way for me to let them know in advance who's going to be in the story, because I don't know who's going to be in the story until I start reading the story and looking at names and fitting them in. So they won't know unless they happen to just show up on a night that their name is featured in the story, which some people have. Vernice showed up one night, her name was featured. Scratching Queen showed up one night, her name was featured. It's just if they come into story time. Other than that, someone may share it with them and let them know who may have been in the story, who may be subscribed to them, or they're subscribed to that person. And then they'll say, oh, you know, I was in Deborah's Glad Tidings story time the other night, and she featured you in the story. And so I have had about 2 or 3 people who came back and said, watched a brief video, and then they said, hey, I heard you featured me in your story time. Thank you so much. And I went back and I listened to the replay and saw that you featured me in the story. And then they shared the story out. You know, one of the people said, yeah, and I shared my story out on my Twitter. You know, so of course, share your story out if you're featured in a story. But that's the only way you would know. Either you show up to story time or someone happened to be in story time and told you that you were featured in a story. And you can always go and do the playback. And I do list the names of the characters on my videos on the description page. I do list the names of the characters who were featured in the stories. And also, if I happen to be in their live at some point and I featured them in a story, I'll say, hey, by the way, host, I featured you in one of my stories at story time. I don't always remember which story I featured them in to be able to tell them which one, but I do let them know. that I featured in my story, so they have the opportunity to go back and take a look at it. So that's just it. It's just the luck of the draw, and like I said, there's no way for me to tell you in advance whose name will be featured in the story. It's just how the story is flowing and how I think the name fits into the spot. Like, for instance, Voltron Supreme, I picked him in the story tonight because that was the role of the Sea King, and trying to find a name in there that sounded like it might be a name from back in that time or something. So that's what made me use his name. Now, Princess Alicia, even though she has the three sisters, they're all apparently princesses. However, Princess Alicia is actually one of the YouTubers' names. So that's why I featured her as the youngest daughter. So Princess Alicia. So each time I put her in, I was actually using the full name of the YouTuber. And then afterwards, when I was listing the four sisters, so I started out with her, Princess Alicia, Weird Bree, Marilyn, Middap, and GailB. So everybody assumes, okay, they're all princesses because of the king. But Princess Alicia is actually a YouTuber's name. And then you have, of course, the other ladies that I mentioned. And I could have probably added a name for the prince that married her. But I kind of ran out of time. I had some running around. I was running around to the 9th hour. And I was kind of perusing through my list of YouTubers. And I really didn't quite find a name that I was pleased with to add in. And also with the grandmother, you know. And I thought about it later with the grandmother. And I was going to use Frugal Granny. But then it wasn't really a situation where we talked about like the thriftiness aspect of that name like a story before, because there was a story before where I actually used Frugal Granny, where it was talking about in the story how the people lost their money and they had to start being thrifty and cutting back. So I actually did use Frugal Granny in that, and I was thinking about it for here, but it didn't seem to fit the story quite that well, so I didn't use it. But these are the names. This is the way that I fit the names in there. And even with the Sea Witch, I didn't quite see a name that I thought, you know, fit that character, a YouTuber's name that fit that character. So tonight I was limited with with the names of the YouTubers that I use. But like I said, sometimes I have many depending on the story, and sometimes just a handful. But I'm always using the YouTubers as the characters featured in the story, because like I said, this is also my way of shouting out YouTubers' names, so you can pick them up if you're not already subscribed to them. You know, you could pick them up. So that's what I do. I have them out there like that. But I appreciate each and every one of you stopping by to see me. I do not take it lightly that you came in to my story time. I really, really, really appreciate it. But I'm not going to, at this point, prolong the time, because I know a lot of you have things that you got to take care of and get ready for your day tomorrow. And I do as well. And one of the things is I haven't had dinner yet, and it's kind of late. So I want to go ahead and do that. So I'll still have an hour or so to kind of sit up to give my food time to work its way through my system. But thank you so much, each and every one of you, for coming by. Like I said, I don't take it for granted that you're here. I really, really appreciate it. Shawana, feel better. I hope you get well soon. Hey, wait, any birthdays? Do I have any birthdays? That's what I was forgetting. I used to do a birthday shout out if I have any birthday. Anybody has any birthday out there? Last couple of story times I haven't had any birthdays. No birthdays? Okay. Well, if you're ever in story time and it's your birthday, make sure you let me know, because I do the birthday song. I give you 4 options. I'll do either the traditional birthday, happy birthday song for you. You'll either choose from that, the Marilyn Monroe birthday song, the Stevie Wonder birthday song, or the 2 Live Crew birthday song. So I haven't had any birthdays in a minute. The last 2 I had, they both picked this. It was funny because they both picked the same birthday song, which was the Marilyn Monroe birthday song. So I haven't had any opportunities to hi Gameplay Couch, how are you? Thank you so much for stopping in. Unfortunately, you missed our story, but I appreciate the fact that you came in. But you can always go back and look at it on through the gameplay. Frank G says mine is next week. Okay, Frank, you got to come back next week. What day next week is your birthday, Frank? Frank G? What day next week? Let's see. Gameplay is on. Sorry, I'm late. Allergies woke me up, so I'm here. Oh, okay. That's okay. That's okay. At least you came in. You came a little late. So Frank G says his birthday is Wednesday next week. Oh, that works out. I'm glad you said Wednesday, that day of the week. That just remind me, you all. Now I'm not going to be having story time, unfortunately. Every night of the week, I'm not going to be having story time every night, because it takes a lot for me to prepare for story time, and it's been kind of rough on me. So story time now will be on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I have to take a day off in between to recover. So you all are here now, and I'm going to let you know since you're here. So remember that story time will be Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And I'm also going to put the little message I put up as a reminder to let people know there will not be story time tomorrow. So we will resume story time on Wednesday. Frank G says his birthday is Wednesday of next week. So Frank G, I will be singing your birthday song for you next week. And I'm going to ask Gigi from Gigi's Gluten Free Lab to remind me, because I told you all I get these little brain parts. So she's going to remind me, Frank G, that your birthday is next week, Wednesday, and I'm going to sing the birthday song of your choice. I'm just curious, Frank G, which song would you pick? Would you prefer? Would it be, okay, thank you. Gigi says she's going to remind me. Frank G, would you like me to sing the Marilyn Monroe song? Would you like the traditional birthday song? Would you like Stevie Wonder's version? Or would you like the 2 Live Crew version? I'm just curious as to which song you'd like, Frank G. Hi, Cindy. How are you? How are you? So glad you made it by. Unfortunately, you missed the story, so you're going to have to catch it on replay. Cindy was also featured in one of the stories. She was also, okay, so Frank G says Stevie Wonder. Now, Frank G, I was just curious as to which song you like. I'm not going to hold you to it. So if you change your mind by next week, Wednesday, that's fine with me. I just was curious as to which song version you like. So next week, we'll be singing Stevie Wonder's version of Happy Birthday to Frank G, unless he changes his mind. I was just curious. But yes, thank you so much for stopping by. Cindy, I don't take it for granted. anybody that comes in, I really, really, really appreciate it. Make sure you thumbs up. Those of you who came in, make sure you give me a little thumbs up. I appreciate it. But like I said, there will be no story time for those of you who just came in. There will be no story time on tomorrow. I had to cut back because physically it was too much for me. So story time will now be on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So that's when we'll be having story time. So I will, once I sign out tonight, I will make my little usual brief announcement. So for people who aren't here tonight, and for those who weren't here last night, when I first made the announcement, they'll be able to check and see what's going on, and they'll know that there won't be a story time tomorrow. Cindy says, hi, I'm good. How are you? Yes, I will replay. I'm not getting notifications. You're the second person told me you're not getting notifications. I don't know what that is. And I'm not getting notifications for several of my people that I'm subscribed to for stuff. So I don't know what's going on in the system. I really don't. But I'm glad you're doing well. And I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. It was a very good day. It really was a pain-free day. So that always makes for a good day for me. But like I said, Gigi, okay, Cindy's speaking to Gigi's gluten-free lab. So I'm gonna go, like I said, once I end the live, I am gonna go and do my usual message for those who weren't here last night, because I think last night was the first night that I made the announcement that I won't be doing lives every night anymore. So whomever didn't make it in last night, who wasn't here tonight, they can go and check my brief message, and they'll find out that story time. I'll be back for story time on Wednesday night. So that's the schedule from this point on: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Cindy says, glad you're feeling well. Thank you so much. Thank you. I really appreciate you all checking in on me. So that'll be the new schedule, and I look forward to seeing you all for my new schedule on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday. I enjoy it. I get excited for story time. Every time story times come, I get this little burst of adrenaline that I told you all. I get just as excited. Hi, Angels are we nursery. How are you? I'm so glad you stopped in to see us. Unfortunately, you missed story time, but you can always pick it up on the replay. Also, you just came in. I was just letting everybody know that I will not be having story time every night anymore. It will be now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Let's see. And Angela said, not too bad. I'm glad you're feeling okay. Hi, Scratch Queen. I know I missed the story time, but I just wanted to stop by to say hi and give you a thumbs up. Thank you, baby. I appreciate you coming by. I know you've been making your rounds in those lives today. I was making some too while I was out driving around, moving and shaking. I was in some of those lives too, so I saw you there. But I appreciate you stopping by to give me that thumbs up. I appreciate you. I was just letting everybody know you may have been in here when I said it before, that I'm not going to be doing my lives every night anymore with the story time, because it's been taking a little toll on me. So it'll be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That will be my schedule. Okay, Angels are we speaking to Gigi. Gigi speaking back. Okay, laugh aloud. It's hard to keep up with everyone. It is. It's hard to keep up with everyone and try to create content at the same time. Trying to go by lives, trying to watch videos. It is a lot. It is a lot to keep up with, but hey, we gotta do what we gotta do. And I'm trying to hang. Sometimes when I look at those daggone watch hours, I get discouraged. I'm like, sheesh. Scratch Me says, yes, I heard that last night. Oh, you were right. Okay. Do what is best for you. Thank you. Yeah, I thought you were here last night, but I was telling them I get a little brain fart, so I forget stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do it on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to give myself some rest. Um, but yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Thumbs up a lot.
But it's a lot. We have a lot that we have to work on. We have a lot going on, each and every one of us. Like I said, sometimes I try not to look at the watch hours because it's so far from where I thought getting 1,000 subscribers was gonna be challenging, but that isn't as challenging as this watch hour aspect of it. Angels are watching. Angels are We Nursery says, I think this is my first time here. Yes, I think it is your first time in my live. I think you and I linked up not very long ago too. Angels are We Nursery. But yeah, when I look at, like I say, when I look at those that watch hours, I'm like, the subscriptions is nearly half as much as those watch hours, and I mean, I haven't even like scraped the surface of where I gotta go for these watch hours. I mean, I still got a little ways to go with my subscription, but my subscribers came up a whole lot faster than I anticipated. So I'm beyond the half mark with the subscribers. But it's just the watch hour stuff. Spanish Queen says, yes, it's easy to get discouraged, but keep perseverance is key. You will get there. Thank you, Scratching Queen. And every time I start feeling that way, it's always somebody either in my live or when I'm making my rounds and looking at videos, it's always somebody, right there with that encouraging word saying, hang in there, hang in there, hang in there. And Gigi from Gigi's Gluten Free Lab, she's like my biggest cheerleader, and she pushes me a lot of times, not in a pushy way, but I should say, I guess push is kind of a strong word. I should say she motivates me a lot of times, even when I don't feel like it. She motivates me, and she does it without doing it in a pushy manner. I'm gonna spank her though for putting me out there for them challenges. I done told her, don't be putting me out there for them challenges. So now I gotta do. I was watching one of her videos that she did a couple of weeks ago, and she put me out there to do that apple and mustard challenge. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that one. That one shouldn't be so bad because that mustard will help me with some of this stomach gas and stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that one. But I told you don't be putting me out there with them challenges. My stomach jacked up enough without eating all that weird stuff all mixed up there like that. Scratch Music, yes, always surround yourself with people who challenge you to do better. Yeah, that's for sure, Scratching Queen. We have to always surround ourselves with people who challenge us to do better. That's for sure. That is definitely for sure. But she is, yes, one of my biggest motivators. And Miss Iris, you all probably see her in from time. She's like one of my biggest fans. So, those are the people that keep me going. You all are the people who I see here in my story time. You keep me motivated because, like I said, when it's time for story time, sometimes I'm feeling so tired, but I get this extra burst of adrenaline when I see you all coming in and coming to spend time with me in story time. But I'm not going to prolong the hour. I'm going to go ahead and say my good nights. Always remember, until we meet again, may his peace be with you. And always remember, I have a will to live. I love you all, and good night.